Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans. We have got another Cli4D pack and this one is very special in that one, I think it's probably the best one he's put together so far, which is saying a lot because they've all been amazing. And two, I'm going to give one of you lucky viewers a free version of this. Cli4D has donated it to the channel, said you could give it away, Nick, because you guys have been such a big support for what I'm doing and all of his work, which has been well worth supporting, I have to say. So I'll give you all the details about how we'll give that away. I was trying to think of some kind of trivia or something like that, but I think I've got it figured out. This is not the first time I've taken this trip. I did kind of map out the route initially, so this won't be a we're seeing it together for the first time type of deal, but I will give you some pointers for how to make it look as good as you possibly can. But just look at how great this looks, though. Just look at this. Oh, he just keeps finding these areas. I think that's how he's one-upping himself over and over again. It's like you cannot possibly find a better area than the last one, and I think he's done it again, which is really cool. And this time he also included a little PDF, which I'm not sure if it's included with the download link. It may be, but it's what he was using to get some information about all these helipads from guys that I think are actually out here at least visiting these or maybe even flying them in real life. So let's go ahead and hop in, get her started up real quick. I did put the doors back on, even though in the 500E, this look at this, it like doubles the size of that, but it's really cold out here and it's really loud without those, so I figured we put it back on. Let's get her started up real quick. All we need to do is hit the starter, which is on the other side of that, give it some throttle, and even though we're not going to be using them because I didn't load up the flight plan, we'll go ahead and get these going. I probably need to have that start pump on, but I think it'll start without it. Let's go ahead and get the anti-ice on, even though they're not going to have a problem with that. I should have done a better job pre-configuring this. All you sticklers for procedure. I know. Okay, everything else is pretty good, I think. So let's give it full power. Let it get ramped up. And then, I'm not sure how long you're supposed to leave the start pump on, but I think it sounds pretty started now. Okay, alright, let's take a look at this real quick. So we are back in Norway again. This pack is called, and you're going to have to forgive me, you guys know I always try to find someone from the area pronouncing these place names. I could hardly find any out here. This is a really remote area, and there's plenty of videos of these spots and the waterfalls and stuff, but they're mostly just music beds with nobody talking. So I really couldn't find the pronunciation for most of these. This pack is called, I think you would pronounce it Kinsarvik, and it is available at all the big sim vendors at this point. It's been out for probably 5 or 6 days now, I believe. So here we are in Norway, and we're on the fjords again, and this whole area, I bet we'll probably see more packs from Cli4D out here because all these just have so many waterfalls everywhere. That was not one of them that we took before. That was our trip from down here up to Bergen. But anyway, so all of the stuff that's included in this spans this whole area right here. He's got several helipads, and most of the ones we're going to be landing on are pretty tough landing challenges too. Many of them are little pumping stations. All of these little lakes that you see up here, some of them are natural lakes. Some of them, a lot of them, are man-made reservoirs, or at least reinforced reservoirs to make them bigger, like this one here. But they've got these little pumping stations because there's so many hydroelectric facilities out here that they will pump water between all these different lakes to get them down to the primary reservoir, or maybe up into the primary reservoir, to power all the hydroelectric facilities, which is pretty cool. So the sim should now be, I couldn't get it to work, I think I'm having a glitch with little nav map, but it should be if you load the add-on pack and then load through the scenery library and just update it through load scenery library, I think it'll probably bring all of the helipads into little nav map. I was having some trouble getting it to work, so if you're having the same problem, I did put H's where all of these starting helipads are, roughly. Some of them are spot on, some of them are at least very close to it, so you'll know where they are. And I also put these little water insignias where all of the animated waterfalls that I could find are, and there's probably even more than this. I didn't go down every little nook and cranny. So if you load up this bookmark file, which will be included along with this flight plan in the video description, you'll get all these little water insignias here that'll show you where the waterfalls are. So we're going to start right down here at one of the hydroelectric facilities. I think this is called Mauranger, maybe. And we're going to cruise off this way down into the first fjord, and then up here into this, there's going to be some animated water here. The most incredible glacier I've ever seen is going to be right up in here. We're going to park right next to it, or try to, on a tiny little helipad, and these things are so small. A lot of them are on the roofs of the little pumping stations. But this glacier here is like a waterfall glacier, and it is massive. So we'll come up right next to that. There's going to be a waterfall next to it. It's going to be awesome. Come over this giant national park here, which is one of the biggest glaciers in all of Norway. Come across here to this other fjord. Look how long this thing is. It goes up there. This is beautiful. If you just flew right along that, it'd be beautiful. And then cruise up into here, and this is kind of off the beaten path, but there is a little helipad, and it is truly a pad. It's like a little wooden platform right here by one of these other pumping stations, and we're going to look at a very neat-looking natural geological formation called Trolltunga right there. And then cruise back down here, pop back over to this side, hit a few more tiny little spots on these reservoirs, check out some more waterfalls up here, and then come into the main waterfall area, which is the one that is by Kinsarvik. And it looks like I didn't spell that right, but you get the point because it's right next to the name of the place. The whole trip is only 66 miles, so not that long, but we're going to be going up and down quite a bit. So some pointers for getting this to look as good as it can. I know some of you might prefer to have really, really green, lush scenery. You could definitely do that, especially if you have the Baijan Seasons Pack. But we are way up north in the higher latitudes with lots and lots of mountains. So the problem you're going to wind up running into is stuff like this. And I tried it with all of the different maps in the map enhancement. Obviously, you don't want to use the one from Mapbox because you're going to have clouds printed on the landscape. But I tried the Google, I tried the Bing Maps, and they're all going to have big shadows. And in the sim, when it sees things like this, it does not know what to put in there. So when you're flying past it, much like in that Switzerland trip, you would see just a big, huge area that looks like mud or dirt, dark, no trees or anything like that. So I moved the month back 1 month to February, and that's going to keep enough snow on the ground that it's not going to look so obvious. It's just going to look like, you know, snow-dusted cliffs and things like that. But if you want to add all the trees, it does look beautiful, except for the areas where you get to stuff like this. And this whole valley is really in a shadow, so I thought it looked a little bit more realistic with some of the snow on the ground. But the trees do look fantastic. You'll just, if you go full-on treed in the summer months, you're going to get some areas like this where it's just really, really dark. So that's the plan of attack. Got plenty of things to talk about, plenty of places to try to pronounce, lots of glaciers. You're going to get a little bit of everything on this flight. And then well, I'll tell you about it once we get out there. I tried a very, very tough landing challenge on a spot that's not a helipad and was unsuccessful, but I'll show you where it is. Very cool. Okay, I think we're in good shape here, so let's go ahead and fire this baby up and get going. We've got some random avatar. That's not Will, but he's got a very nice hairdo, so I'll take it. And up we go. So our departure location here is the Mauranger hydroelectric power station. You can see some of the power line towers over there. And boy, these Norwegians must be banging out a ton of clean energy around here because they built all kinds of reservoirs up in these mountains, many of which we'll see. And they seem to keep everything nice and tidy by running the water down through tunnels for a lot of the generators, so even the dams are very understated. And I'll try to spot as many of those for you guys as we can as we're flying by too. And if you follow that road down there that crosses over that bridge back in the other direction, you will see that the road eventually just plows right into the mountain. In real life, there's a tunnel entrance down there, which isn't modeled in the sim. So there's a fun little project for your next one, Cliff. But that runs about 7 miles to the southeast and spits out at a little town along the beautiful fjord we'll see shortly once we head over in that direction. And I'll try to remember to point that out to you too. I didn't look for the tunnel on the other side, but you might be able to see it because it's not quite as treed over as this one is. And we're floating out into the Mauranger Fjord right now, which is just a little branch of a much larger fjord called Kvinnerad. Maybe. But we won't get to see any of that one because we'll be turning to the south once we get around this corner right here. And once we do that, we'll be over a town that I think is called Sundal. But as I was trying to get information about it online, all the sites kept describing landmarks that aren't anywhere near here. So I think there might be another region called Sundal over to the north. But all the maps definitely call this Sundal too, so I'm going to go with that. But regardless of that, it is a beautiful area with lots of rapids and falls, some of which will be animated. We'll check them out as we come by. I'm going to try to kind of hug this mountain here so we can see everything out to the left or down out in front of our feet there. That pillar, again, is going to be a bit of a problem. And best of all, this is going to lead up to that incredible glacier. It looks like a huge frozen waterfall. But one thing I'm fairly confident about is that this valley is called Bondhusdalen. And the waterfall glacier at the end of it is called Bondhusbreen. And then the first body of water we're going to see here in just a little bit, at the top of this first series of waterfalls, is called Bondhus Lake. And it doesn't appear to be dammed up, so that one may be en natural. Okay, we should be able to start seeing some flowing water up here. There's a little bit of it. It's a lot more obvious because it's so blue looking compared to the really green landscape if you bring the trees back in like June or July. But you can see it down there, right by our feet, and the waterfall will be over here to the right. Oh, this landscape just looks so great. And you probably didn't even notice that area to our right when we first pulled over the town there. That would have been an area that would have been in a shadow and kind of sticking out as not looking quite right if you didn't have the snow on. Look how beautiful this lake is. Gorgeous. And another waterfall right at the end of it. And there's our glacier up there coming over the top of that little crest in the mountain. The place where we're going to find our first tiny helipad, and I do mean tiny, is a real-life structure, as I believe all of these are. And it's called Vinduet and belongs to a company called Statkraft, which put most of these out here, and they run a lot of the hydroelectric facilities in the region and all over Europe by the sounds of it. And Cliff did send me that PDF with some information about all these, which I'm going to add to this. I'll read to you some of the stuff that he put in there, which saved me a little bit of research time. In fact, I don't know if I could have found that information anywhere, so it was very helpful. But he said for this facility, it's used to divert runoff coming from the glacier north to the reservoirs that are feeding the power plant that we started at in Mauranger. And he also said that this tiny helipad aside, it's particularly dangerous because of an atmospheric phenomenon called katabatic winds. And I'm embarrassed to admit that despite working through 2 years of a meteorology major at FSU, I'd never heard of that. But it's caused by steep slopes that are covered by cold ground like a gigantic glacier. And it causes the air to start sinking, and even faster if it's in a valley, and even faster if at the end of the valley there's something warm like a big body of water, which creates like a Venturi effect, which can really start sucking you down. So he said the best approach is to hug this mountain to the left, and if you have to abort, you peel off to the right and try to get out of that downdraft, kind of like swimming out of an undertow. So that's what we'll try to do. I didn't really notice the effect here in the sim, but I wasn't thinking about it because I didn't read that part of it until after my original flight. So we'll see if we start to feel that at all. And man, there's a really big waterfall right underneath that thing, but we can't see it because we got to stay on this approach angle. It's cool looking though. There's that tiny helipad. Not the roof, but up there next to it. The roof would be nice. It's about 3 times as large. But look at that glacier. Incredible. It's a little bit bluer, which may be truer to life in the Google map, but there's also some kind of weird jagged looking things that kind of pop out on that one that I didn't see here. So this one actually looks more natural despite maybe being a bit more muted in color. I feel like I've got more of a wind coming from left to right, actually. I've got to keep some left pressure on that cyclic. But I guess it would be also flowing, if it's all just flowing down towards the center of that valley, that would probably be accurate, because we're not really that close to that glacier yet, although it looks like it because it's so huge. Ease her down. Ease her down. Look how tiny this is. I'll hop out when we're done so you can see how small this is. You can't get a sense of it to see the skid sitting on this thing. You got to just plant it right directly in the middle. I'm keeping a lot of left pressure on that cyclic. Oh, I feel like we got a little further. If I go all the way down, the collective will fall off the back. You really got to get to the point where you can't see it anymore. There we go. How'd we do? Look at that. You got to nail it. Okay, so we'll come up and then peel off to the right. Check out this glacier, because we don't have anywhere to go to the left if it blows us down. Bring her up. Rock her off to the right. You really appreciate how massive this is as you get closer. Look at that. I'm sure maybe something like this exists somewhere else in the world, but I don't recall ever seeing anything like it, and definitely not with a little helipad right directly next to it. Look at this. Amazing. And all the snowpacks look really detailed. Look at that. All the snow is textured. And I didn't set any additional snow. I just moved the month back some, and you can see by our little temperature gauge up there, it looks like it's right about at the freezing mark right now. So probably a good thing we put on our anti-icing stuff. Look at that. Look at the texture on the snow. It looks beautiful. Very, very lifelike. So we're going to fly about 7 miles directly east as we cross over the Fogelfana National Park, and I did get a pronunciation for that. So I think that's right. Home to the Fogelfana Glacier, which is roughly 80 square miles in surface area, making it the 3rd largest in Norway. And what's kind of interesting about this location is that this whole huge mass is considered a single glacier. As it spills down into all the little valleys, some of the tongues get their own names, like the one we just saw. But this thing as a whole is kind of unique in that it's more of what I feel is like what I want to call a blob glacier, though I'm sure there's a more technical term for it. And what I mean by that is that the entire perimeter seems to be almost like a huge ring glacier. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we're done. Somewhere out here over to the left is one of the added in-sim spawn points, and I did start there one time just to find out where it is, and I did mark it with an H in the bookmark file, but it's just a spot in the snow. There's not like any markings or anything, but it's right around here somewhere. And you know, another thing that's kind of nice about flying this in February with the sun a little bit lower is in the later months it's kind of overexposed, like everything just blown out, and you can't see as much of the texture in these white areas. So once again, if you can stomach not seeing all the green trees everywhere, give it a shot in February. It's very nice. Once we get over to the other side of this ice and snow, we'll fly over Barbreen Glacier and into a valley that's part of the Bure Landscape Protection Area. We'll come out over a lake whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Lots and lots of consonants very close to each other. And then we're going to turn to the north of the town of Odda, which will probably be the largest population center we're going to see on this trip. So, if you would like to win a free version of this add-on pack, here's how we're going to do it. I thought about doing some kind of aviation trivia or something like that, but that's not hard in these days when you can look up anything in the world in a matter of seconds on your phone. So I do have a different kind of trivia, and this is for the folks that have been loyal viewers of the channel for a very long time. Over the course of all of our 200-plus flights, I have mentioned a lot of different places in the country that I have lived, and I won't even tell you where I'm living now, though that one would definitely be the easiest. So the person who can come up with the most, I've mentioned at least 5 towns. We've toured all 5 of those, and there's one more I don't know that I've ever mentioned. If you find that one too, you got it in the bag. But the first person who can come up with the most detailed answer of those 5 towns, or the closest to it, will get the add-on pack. So if you're even in the region and no one gets even closer than the region, that will count. So it's the most detailed and the most number. And you can put it in the YouTube comments so you guys can play off each other and try to figure it out if you want. The first one to get as close as you possibly can will be the winner. And I'll announce that at the beginning of our next flight, which will probably be within a week. But here's the caveat. I will announce it by your YouTube handle, so you'll need to be watching at least the start of that next flight. And then you're going to have to get on our Discord server if you're not already a part of it, and then DM me because I'm going to need your email address to send it to. So make sure you're comfortable with me knowing that. I promise I won't send you any dirty jokes or pictures unless you ask for them. I will just send you the add-on pack. So that's what we'll do. And some of these videos of some of the places I've lived aren't even up anymore. They were some of our earliest videos, but I have mentioned them on later videos too. So see how many you can get. Whoever gets the closest will bag it. I thought about just doing my last name, which would be really tricky because I've never said that. But if you're a real Google sleuth, you could probably figure it out. Okay, so here comes Odda, which is spelled O-D-D-A, but I saw a video of a local guy that was touring it, and it sounded more like he was saying Odda. So that's what I'm going to go with. And as you're going to see, it's mostly an industrial town today, but it used to be a real hotspot for well-to-do tourists who wanted to come out here and check out all the waterfalls. Something us simmers get to enjoy for pocket change today. Around 15 bucks if you buy this on Orbix. Or you can get it for free. I'm going to remind my wife of that next time I get harassed about how much I spend on the old sim pit. Come on, honey, can you imagine how much it would cost to take these trips in real life? Man, she should be thanking me for being such a great steward of our finances. Those of you that watched Ragnarok on Netflix have already seen a lot of what Odda looks like from the ground because Odda is Edda in the series. They use this place to film all that. And if you have a keen eye, you probably even noticed that a few times they forgot to change some of the signs on the buildings from Odda to Edda in the show, which is kind of neat. I only saw a few episodes of that. My kids are really into it, though. Stretching north for 21 miles here is Sørfjorden, which we will see several more times before we're done today. And that little hunk of land sticking out over there to our left is Eithreim, which appears to be almost entirely industrial. I think I'm pronouncing that one right. I can't imagine how else you'd say it. Eithreim. It looks like there's some residential areas to the north and then also here to the south. And that tunnel that comes across from the other side spits out over here somewhere along that mountain, but I don't even know if we'll be able to see the road. We'll look when we come by here. If we just follow the road up into the mountain, we'll see. I don't see any roads anywhere coming off of that. We'll take a look to the left when we get up here. Look at these little boats and stuff down here. Just love it. Looks great. And the little colored buildings and everything. Even though those are all default, that's pretty much what it looks like. Yeah, the road would be over there to the left, to the north of town. I'm not seeing it. I bet you couldn't see the tunnel either. Look at that. Look at the little mountains and stuff down there. All heavy industry. So if you wanted to just cruise down this all the way down, not only would you fly past most of the spots, you'd have to bear off to the left and right to check out where the waterfalls are, but this is a beautiful little strip here just heading north. Alright, so we are going to take a... How are we doing on our torque? Sometimes when I'm climbing, it doesn't sound like it, but the torque will jump up into the red there, so I need to kind of keep an eye on that, and our airspeed. We're going to take a right at this next opening in the mountains over the town of Tissedal, and I think I got the pronunciation for that right because I found an assembly instruction video for a piece of IKEA furniture called the Tissedal. And the guy putting it together sounded very Scandinavian, so I'm guessing he said it right. Some kind of wardrobe. And it looked like it'd probably last at least 6 months before the doors broke off. But he got it together over the course of about 45 minutes. And this is what's called a monotown. I hadn't heard of that before, but it's a town that was built up around just one industry, and for these guys, it was smelting. I think it was titanium and iron back in the day, but now they just do aluminum right down there along the coast. And if you look at it on the map, it's very nice and rusty and dirty. Just beautiful. But today the town has a population of around 600 and is mostly employed by the aluminum smelting plant. And this place is also run by hydropower generated by the reservoir we're going to see as soon as we come over this ridge right in front of us. And then we'll be up over the area where the old interesting geological formation is, the Trolltunga. I'll tell you about that once we get up there. Just the amount of work that must have gone into building out the hydroelectric infrastructure with all these tunnels and the dams and the pumping stations and everything for such a relatively small population out here. That's crazy. I wonder if there's ever any possibility of ever recovering the cost of that. Because that town had 600 people. I think Odda had like 4,000 or 5,000. But they do have a lot of heavy industry, so they're probably pulling a lot of juice out of these things. Check this out as we come over the top of this. The trees look amazing. Okay, so again, over here to the right would be the area that would just be dark brown blob if you didn't have any snow, because it's all in the shadow. So just glance over to the right as we're flying by. We'll see how it looks. A little bit better. And over to the left is the dam for this thing. Check this out. Without any snow, it doesn't look very natural at all. It's just like a black drop-off on the other side of it there because it's also all shadow, but you can actually see the downslope of the dam over there, which is really cool. Looks fantastic. Our next spot is really off the beaten path, but totally worth it because we're going to check out the old Trolltunga up here. And like all these other little spots out in the middle of nowhere, this one is a real facility and also a diversionary pump station used by Statkraft, which has got to mean they've even interconnected these smaller lakes and ponds that we're going to see up on the top of this down to feed this main reservoir. I mean, why not just cut like a channel so it flows over the edge? Then you have another waterfall too. Probably get more tourists out here. I can already see the Trolltunga. I've got both hands on the controls, but it's that little speck hanging off of that cliff right in front of us. And this is the one that I did try to land on, and you probably could if you had the time to do it, but it's really jagged and uneven, and I wanted to hop out and look over the edge of it, because you can see it just hanging out there over that cliff. You'll see what I'm talking about when we get closer. Oh man, look at all this popping in we're getting. Okay, so to remedy that, I forgot to do it in this area. Same thing with all the waterfalls. When you're on the world map, first make sure your rolling cache size is pretty big. I keep mine at 100 gigabytes. But when you're on the world map, before you spawn in, just like we did in that Switzerland flight, zoom in to all of the areas, because I think Cliff probably modded that up, because I doubt that little cliff, that little point of rock hanging out there would be there by default in the sim. So he probably modded that up so we could see it, which I'm grateful for, which is probably why we're getting the popping. But if you zoom all the way into all the spots, it would be modded up. So waterfalls, rapids, any helipads, those usually don't pop as much, or any landscape features that have been modded. And if you zoom in until they pop in on the world map, then when you get in to fly it, there won't be any popping. There shouldn't be. We still might see just a little bit of it. But if you don't do that ahead of time, you'll see a lot more popping. So anytime we're going to get to areas that are probably pretty data heavy for the add-ons, I'll always zoom in. I didn't do it in this area though, which is where we're going to see some more of this popping. See that thing sticking out there? It's like a little diving board just hanging off the edge. Yeah, we're popping a little bit. We'll come back around after I show you where this little landing pad is and take a closer look at it. But imagine standing on the edge of that looking over. I saw pictures of people standing on it. So I guess you can get down there and do it if you want to. We're not going to land on this one just for the sake of time, but I'm going to show you where it is. It's very, very hard to spot. I thought it was at that little building over there to the left. That's the pumping station, but it's not. Although I think there is a spawn point for a float plane, and a lot of these do also have float plane spawn points if you want to try to fly a plane out here. All right, I'm looking for it. It's probably covered in snow now, too. It's easier to spot when there's no snow because it looks like a wooden deck. We may have flown past already. I'm going to circle around and look for this thing just so I can show you where it is. Got some power line towers. Okay, there it is. It just came into the left side of the screen. All right, see that the top tree there? It's right behind it right now. Let me see if I can get any closer. It's small, real small. You see it down there? It's in between that tree and that power line tower. Let me see if I can get a little more shadow or something on it. It's just to the left of our pillar right now. And just went out of view. Hold on, I'll come back around so maybe you can see it better. It's right there. See it? That tiny little thing. That's it. Boy, you need a seaplane that could get up in the air pretty quick if you're taking off from one of these things. But these little lakes are all over the place up here. And again, I think they're all interconnected with these pumping stations. So in real life, this formation that we'll see again here in just a second out of the left side of the helicopter is called Trolltunga, or the Trolltunga. And you'll get a better sense of why once we take a better look at it. It looks just like a troll's tongue, and I should know because I've seen several in real life. I don't want to talk about it. But for reasons not explained in Wikipedia, this area has become a major destination for hikers since 2010, for some reason. There it is right there. See it hanging out? You'd think you could land right on that, but then once you try to, it's really, really jagged and rough. But before 2010, they said roughly 800 people would come out here each year. I don't know how they counted that, but in 2016, they had more than 80,000 visiting the old tongue. But they also said it's an extremely challenging journey of about 10 hours with no shelters or rest areas along the way. Or once again, you could just be a simmer and enjoy it for less than the cost of a large pizza. I think they said in 2028 maybe they were going to build a little lodge somewhere along the route, but as you can see, there's no roads or anything, so I guess you'd have to hike all the way from the town down there to get up here, or fly with the helicopters. Now notice the water here as we get a little bit closer. See how it's kind of making that blurred effect? I thought that might be because of my DLSS, so I switched it over to TAA, and it's still doing it. It'll probably get more pronounced as we come down in elevation. But it's almost kind of doing that ghosting thing that you get with the DLSS. But even when I switched out of that, it was still doing it, so I'm not sure what causes that. But that's okay. Just a minor distraction. So we're going to come over here to the right, take another look at our dam on the left, and then head up into these mountains and back across the big fjord, and then try our best to spot two more little helipads at some more little lakes on top of these mountains. And these are going to be really tough to spot. Maybe we'll land at one of them. This is just gorgeous. Hats off to you, Cliff, man. I don't know how you are finding this stuff. It is just amazing. Really amazing. By the way, guys, you know, obviously I love Cliff, and I love all modders. If you've been around the channel for any length of time, you know that I'm a huge fan of the modders of the sim community. I have always believed those guys are the lifeblood of the community, whether they make payware or freeware, whether they just want to do one thing and see if anyone likes it or not. But if you are a modder, or if you know someone that's a modder, I want to elevate you guys. I want to showcase your work. I want to tell everybody about it. So let me know if you've got a site that you want me to check out. I can't promise I'll do every single one of them if we get a flood of them, but usually when I'm trying to scope out a site, the first thing I look at is what add-ons are available. Because I love to be able to show that stuff off. In a lot of parts of the world that don't otherwise have photogrammetry or anything else, it can make all the difference in the world. Especially landmark and landscape add-ons. Even like water fixes, tree fixes, stuff like that. Love it. I'll drop you a line. I'll link to your site on flightsim.to, or if you're selling it, wherever they can find it. Everybody wins. It's awesome. As I mentioned on that last Norway flight, which I think was another review of Cliff's mods, all of these amazing fjords and fjormations are the result of glacial movement and melting since the last glacial maximum, which was roughly 10,000 years ago. Just watching that torque there. We don't have to worry about our airspeed as we're coming up here, because I'm really having to give it some juice. How's our wind doing? Only about a 5-knot crosswind. It feels like it's a lot more than that. And someone had sent me a comment about the 500D asking if it would tend to lean to the left in real life. And if you watched our video of the helicopter lesson with a real helicopter pilot, Jeremy, the real helicopter pilot that was with me on that flight, said that yes, it is the force of that tail rotor that'll cause it to lean one direction or the other. And in a particularly light and particularly powerful helicopter like this one, it is far more pronounced. So sometimes I have to trim that a little bit if it's too strong, or it'll just be flying cockeyed the whole time. We still have a little bit of a lean right now. I've already trimmed it though. I may have over-trimmed it. But if you're wanting to see what a glacier looks like in real life, you might want to plan on doing that sooner than later. Most of them in the inhabited parts of the world are projected to be gone by the end of this century. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist in saying that, but if you've seen most of our glacial flights on this channel, I have mentioned the shocking pace at which most of those have been disappearing. There were some parts in the Andes that used to be totally covered by glaciers, and you know how much I love flying in the Andes. Now there is not an ounce of glacial coverage left, which is pretty amazing. It's actually kind of shocking that sea levels haven't risen more than that. Maybe the world's just getting more cloudy. It's all evaporating. But that's a bit startling how fast all these are disappearing. If you compound the human interference with that. Now, is that... No, that's not the road that the tunnel would come out of. No, that's back behind us, over to our left. I thought that might be it. So once we get up here, you'll see, I mean, we're in just no man's land on the top of this thing, and every now and then you'll just see like a road cutting across the middle of it. It's crazy. Can you imagine trying to climb that thing up, especially in the wintertime? I would say you would definitely need a four-wheel drive car for that. Oh, the road kind of disappears. Maybe it does go into a tunnel. But that's not the one that crosses over to the place that we left from. I think we might even get another little glacial pond up here, which is probably somehow connected to a reservoir via pump system. Okay, so we got about a 9-mile trip back across the top of Folgefonna Glacier. And we're going to head all the way over to the western side of it to attempt a landing at another micro pad on top of another pumping station. And I may, let's see, on a little nav map, I've got a shooting right across the top here. I may turn to the left because that's got to be a lot more climbing. I think we have a little ridge here. Yep, we'll come up in there. And then we'll just cut back over. But assuming, 1, I can find this little station, and 2, survive the landing, then we're going to head north to another one, and then check out another valley with a bunch of waterfalls. But right after we hit this first one, we're going to take a very slight diversion to see if we can spot the lifts for a ski slope that they've got on top of the glacier. I nearly missed it, but as I was comparing the resolution for different satellite maps to see which one we should use, and again, I settled on none of them, this is the default map, but I skimmed across it as I was looking around down there, and I was like, is that what I think it is? Well, it is. It turns out they really do have a single lift that brings people to the top of something that looks nothing like a ski slope and everything like a legit glacier, with huge crevasses and everything. There's some tiny little spots that they've kind of graded and plowed out, it looks like. But I don't think it's really popular. I counted 21 cars in the parking lot, so I'm not sure. And it didn't look like they had the lifts indicated on little nav map like they will do at some spots, which I'm guessing is what MAMU uses as the indicator that a lift needs to go in there. So I'm thinking we probably will not see the actual lift. But I'm hoping the terrain looks like it does on the satellite map, so you can see how crazy it would be to try to ski across it. And we'll probably be able to see the parking lot too, which is how I'm going to try to find it. Because it is just right in the middle of a glacier with nothing else out there except that lift. So I've got some very exciting news. You guys have probably figured out by now after our last couple of flights that I'm 1, a big fan of vintage aircraft, and 2, an even bigger fan of vintage aviation techniques. I was kind of covering some of those in that first VOR tutorial flight we did over Portugal a couple weeks ago. And then, of course, we did that ADF flight over England and London last week. By the way, if you guys didn't see the comments for that, I'm pretty sure that landing at the end was a belly landing. I did drop the gears. In fact, I looked down at my Bravo to make sure the lever was down, but as I was rewatching that flight, my gear lights never came on. And so I don't think the gears came down. And I was pretty hard on myself about that landing, but if that was a belly landing, it was fantastic. And if you watch at the very end, as I was trying to taxi off on the belly of the plane, there was this like big grinding sound as I turned onto the taxiway, which is probably indicative of trying to taxi on the fuselage. So that was interesting. I'm not sure how that happened. I'm guessing maybe it was because, you know, a lot of the planes, even if you drop the lever, the gears won't come down until you hit a certain airspeed. And I'm thinking maybe the sim just did not automatically drop them if I had paid enough attention. Look at that. There's one of those roads just crossing through the middle of nowhere. Nothing else out here but that road. So I'm thinking that's probably what happened with that. But anyway, we are going to be... All right, hold on. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. So this is a reservoir right here, and it's one of the bigger ones out here. Off to the left over there, there's a dam that's blocking this up. Doesn't look much like a dam here in the sim. But if we didn't have the snow, it'd probably be much more obvious. Yeah, that's it right there, that ledge. And there is a really, really tiny spot here, so I'm going to start trying to look for it. We're going to have to come around this way and see if we can find this thing. And I think I'll probably land on this one. Our ski slope will be dead ahead over that way. So I'm just going to start looking for this. It's going to be on this ledge here down to the right, and I'm probably going to have to come down some. I don't think I'm going to be able to spot this thing until we get closer. But someone had mentioned in the comments for that last flight over England that there is an add-on that will simulate the radio range, which was like the earliest iteration I mentioned in that Portugal flight, where they would basically just make a corridor of radio signals so that you would know if you're going too far to the left or to the right that was Morse code based. So I checked it out, and I'm going to try loading it up, and it includes a map of all the 450 plus original beacons, and they're all modeled in the sim, but you have to route out your plan based on the original vintage maps. So there's a huge PDF that's like 400 pages long that we'll have to use to actually map it out, and then we'll have to fly it with the radio on to listen for the Morse code signals. Where is this thing? And if we can... There it is, right there, right next to the console. You see how tiny that is? Alright, we'll try to get on it. But if we can pull that off, how awesome would that be? We could fly any plane. Doesn't matter how old it is, how rudimentary the controls are, or at least the avionics. As long as it has a radio, then we'll do it. And it can't be too long because a plane that old is probably going to be really slow, but they are just all over the country, the lanes that they were using for that. But it's kind of complicated. It runs outside the sim, so in other words, I think you have to tune into the signal outside the sim in a separate app, and then it somehow tracks where you are in the sim, so I got to work all that out. But there's like a whole little, like a little society of simmers that fly like that. They got a Discord page and everything. I haven't been on there yet either, but I'm going to check all that out. Well, it appears the pad's a little bit bigger on this one, but it may be just because that pumping station is so tiny. We'll see once we get down on it. So, if I can figure that out, we are absolutely going to do that. That might be the coolest thing I've ever done in the sim if we can pull that off. And I can't believe someone actually put something together like that. But it's really neat. And the way it works is fascinating too. This looks to be maybe just a hair bigger than that one by the Glacier. Hey, that wasn't too bad at all. Oh yeah, nailed it. Yep, that one looks to be a little bigger. I think the smallest one is probably that tiny little wooden thing by the Trolltunga. That might be the smallest one. Okay, we'll roll off to the right here, and then we're going to come up and look for the ski slopes. But I'm trying to think of a plane, and I'm sure they're plenty. I don't usually fly the oldest planes because they're so slow that it's tough to go anywhere where we're trying to see more than just a city or something like that. But I'm going to have to kind of go through them and see which ones will have working radios. But the way that it works, which I'll explain again in that video, just as a little teaser for you, is the two Morse code signals they would use is A and N. So if you drift too far to one side, you would hear more of the A. If you drift too far to the other, you would hear more of the N. And if you're right in the middle, because the signals are exactly opposite each other, it becomes one tone. And that's how you know you're flying right up the gut. Okay, so this slope should be out here somewhere. I don't think that's it up on top of that hill there. It's probably down here to the left. Yep, there's the parking lot right there. Look how tiny that is. And that little building next to it is where the bottom of the lift is. Not sure where the top of it is. I don't know what that rectangular looking thing on the landscape is. Nope, no lift. And that terrain really doesn't do it justice. There's too much snow there, which is probably what it has to look like when people are actually skiing out here. But I'll show it to you on the satellite map, which I'm guessing is during the summer months because there's a lot more greenery and less snow out here. And there's absolutely no way you could ski on that thing when it looks like that. But it's cool. Look at all these lakes. Again, I think all these are probably connected, filling each other up, emptying each other out, all for the sake of hydroelectric power. All right, one more pump station before we check out the falls on this side of the big fjord, which we'll cross over one more time as we head to our ultimate destination. This next pad is on another reservoir called... All right, I'm going to give this my best shot. Hardangerfjord. Hardangerfjord. There's like 50 letters in that word. And for this one in particular, you can really get a sense of just how much they can change the water levels in these things if you compare the different satellite images. I think it's going to be in that open area there in front of us. Maybe, it might be closer than that. In little nav map, the pad is up on dry land about 200 feet from the water. But on the Google map, it's sitting right at the edge of the water, which is pretty wild. I don't know how much of a depth difference that is, but it looks like it's quite a bit. And I don't know how that's going to translate in the sim. We're not using the map enhancements in this one, so I guess it would be based on the Bing map. And I don't know what the sim uses for water elevation data, but I guess we'll find out here in a minute. And we're not going to land on this one. So if any of you have ever done the radio range navigation, let me know. I might need a little bit of help with that. I guess I could always hop on the Discord server and get involved with that community, which is probably really, really cool. But I have a feeling it's not going to be a plug-and-play type of deal. Mapping it out won't be too bad. It'll take some work, and it'll be fun. but getting it to actually work and hear it in the sim and use it properly, I think there might be a little bit of a learning curve with that. I'm looking over at little nav map here to see if I can spot this, because all these lakes kind of start to look the same. I also noticed something very interesting once we fly up over these falls, and I've only seen it one or two other times in the sim, but it almost looks like there's a tear in the landscape where you can see straight through it to the stuff on the other side. And I have no idea what causes that. I don't know if it has anything to do with the add-on or not, because the other time that I saw it wasn't anywhere near any add-ons. But there's going to be like a little fissure, and then you'll see the landscape on the other side of the mountain if it appears again up here. So Cliff, I'll mention it when you see it, just in case you haven't noticed it before, and just make sure it's nothing to do with the add-on doing that. Okay. Let's see if we can find this little pad. Also super, super tiny. Alright, I keep glancing at little nav maps. I think it's behind us now. We'll spot it. We'll spot it. Look at this. It looks like you're on the surface of, like, the moon Titan or something. Does not look like Earth. Those would have to be methane ponds, I think, if we're on Titan. Scanning, scanning, looking for it. Looking for it. We're gonna find it. We are gonna find it. Is that it right down there? That little thing sticking up? Bear with me here, guys. This is important. You may want to find it yourself if you get the add-on pack. Not that it'll help you here, because everything looks the same. But it is marked in the bookmark file. There it is right there. See that little square thing? It's about to go behind the pillar. So that one is pretty close to being on the water, so I would guess that this one's almost full, but we'll be able to tell as we come around here. Yeah, this one's almost full, because in the little nav map, this area right that we're about to fly over right now is dry land. It gets so shallow that that'll just become a little land bridge right there, right underneath us right now. Okay, cool. We're doing good. Alright, here's the area we're going to take the right turn. And I've got another very long name here. Okay, so this lake is called Tosdjulvatnet. And we're going to follow that up to some nice falls to the east. And I don't even know what the falls are called because there's no markers on the satellite maps. But I do think they do have a POI flag in the world map, so Clifford probably stuck the name of these on there. And then I need to try to spot that little tear so you can see it. There's the falls dead ahead of us. They're kind of in a shadow right now. And we may have a couple tiers on these too. And I'm trying to remember if I zoomed in on the world map. We might get some popping with these because I'm not sure I came over here and zoomed in on these either. So I think up on the top one, this one's more of a trickle fall. I think there's a rager. Yeah, we're getting a little pop-up up there on the second tier there. I think we got a rager up here, which might have some mist coming up and everything. Oh, there's a little building down there. It just went out of the scene. There's like a little village or something. Can you imagine living out here? That would be amazing, as long as you had your own helicopter. There's some falls there. Look very, very nice. And I'm looking for that map tear. Maybe this isn't the one with a rager. Nope, that might be up at the last ones we're coming to. Unless it's up on this next pond. Oh, see that? There it is right there, right above that pond. See that little opening? You can see the landscape behind it? It's right next to the console right now. Is that crazy or what? Yeah, okay, no, that's just a little ice flow. I thought there was another fall there. Alright, so we'll head up over this way. And then cruise back across our big fjord. And then we're on the home stretch. It kind of looks like even these little fissures in the snow here... Maybe not. I thought maybe you could see through those too. No, no, no. They're just drifts. Alright. So as we make our last trip over the super long fjord here, which I'm not going to try to pronounce again, and follow it north, we'll be seeing the town of Ullensvag, which does have a spawnable pad right along the water, but I don't think that one has any ground markings either. If I'm recalling correctly, I started at that one too, just so I could put an H on it in the bookmarks. But I think that was just a big open gravel spot down next to one of the piers. It'll be over here to our left. We'll come down and get a little bit closer. It's in that opening there in front of us, just behind the pillar. And then once we get over on that side of the fjord, up to our right, you see that big ridge over there? It'll be directly to our right here in just a minute, but that's the western edge of... All right, here we go again. Hardangerfjord National Park, which is massive. It encompasses the Hardangerfjord Plateau, which is the largest mountain plateau in all of Europe. And if you look at it on the satellite map, it is indeed massive. As far as the history of Ullensvåg, it started as a farming town in the early 1800s, and based on what we'll see here in the sim, I don't think too much has changed since then. Once again, not a whole lot of people pulling a whole lot of hydroelectric power. Look at that, though. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Looks fantastic. There's an old church I'll tell you about at the town that we're flying into for our destination that's really, really old. And I was thinking maybe Cliff had modeled it as the church looks, but it looks like that one, which must be a default building. And I don't know why he would have picked out one church to model. But I'll tell you about that once we get up there. Oh, look at these piers. Look so great. I really can't recall exactly where that helipad is. It's down there somewhere. It's right along the water. And again, there's probably some float plane spawn points down there too. I just love how the snow kind of dusts over those crop lines and stuff there. Just absolutely love it. Was there a big ship down there? No, those are just sailboats. But that's a big pier. I wonder what they're docking a big ship for around here. They put some bushels of corn or grain in there? Because I don't know what else they're producing out here. And about a mile north of town, we're probably almost over it right now, they have an open-air museum with a name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce either. But I checked out some pictures of that place. It appears to showcase what life was like for the early farmers out here. And man, I'm a real sucker for living history museums, so I'd definitely stop to check that one out if I was in the area. Just north of us in Amelia Island. So there's one of your hints for places that I've lived. It's not Amelia Island, which is north of where I'm living now, but they got Fort Clinch, which I think was a Civil War era fort. Just north of that in Fernandina. And they have a very low rent, open air living history museum type of thing with some actors that go in there. They're probably volunteers. But they're the ones that will act like they don't understand what you're talking about when you ask them questions about modern things and all that. I just love it. It's kind of cheesy, but I love it. And when I'm retired, maybe I'll do something like that. If I'm not a pilot by then. Hopefully I'll get to do both. Oh, you know what'd be cool? Get certified as a pilot, fly only vintage planes, and take tourists up and act like I have no idea what they're talking about when they ask me about jet planes. A living history museum in a vintage airplane. That'd be amazing. Okay, so we're going to come up to this opening here, and then we'll be taking a right to check out Kinsarvik, which is what this pack is named. And other than Odda, it seems that this is the only place out here with any kind of significant population for a very, very long way. And this town also has a pretty deep history, going all the way back to the Viking Ages, which I don't know if any of these other towns we've been over so far can claim. And that church I mentioned before, it's still standing down there. It was built in the 1100s, which is pretty wild. There was a whole history about the Vikings coming out here, which I don't have time to go into, but it was fascinating because this is a very, very remote area and not real close to the main ocean ways. Alright, so on the front of that cruise ship, there's a helipad you can land on. The one you can see right now, there's one right behind the console, which did not have a helipad marker. There might be one you could come down on, but I did start on the helipad on the bow of that cruise ship, the one that's not in the shadows. And I'll probably come back and try to land on the other one too, just because I can't help myself. But perhaps of most interest to us simmers about Kinsarvik here is their airlift base that has been supporting the hydroelectric operations since they opened it in 1987, and that's where we're going to land. But according to the information provided by Cliff, it sounds like they use H-125s for pretty much everything out here, from transporting personnel to power line service, building the towers, and hauling all the material around in slings, and tourists, of course. All right, we got some animated rapids right down there below us. Beautiful. And this little river here is what's going to go right up into the mountains there with all the big falls, and they definitely have some ragers up here. I thought about taking the 125 just to be more authentic, but it is so tough for sightseeing. And landing on a tiny pad, forget about it. You just can't see down below you well enough. And it's kind of become a tradition for us to take the 500 for Cliff's flights. That thing to the left is a road. That's not the stream. The stream is right down there. I'm going to try to keep it in that window by our feet so we can see it as good as possible. And as we come around to the right, we will see the airlift station, which is where we're going to land. They got like an arch-covered hangar. There it is right there to the left of the console. Ooh, and with this snow, I can't see any of the markings down there. That's okay, it's just a big open area. They got like 4 or 5 helipads, so plenty of spots to pick from, and unlike everything else, they're gigantic. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier to come into. And I know in past add-ons, Cliff had put rocks down there in the streams too, and it looks like there's a lot of rocks down there. I don't know if he added those or not, but I think they're a great touch. Really adds to the realism. Oh man, here with all this snow, it's kind of tough to pick out the waterfall. You can see it moving. You won't miss these other big ones up here. Yep, you can see the river moving down there. All right, there's a giant one right in front of us there. You can see the mist coming up and everything. And I noticed for the couple of trailers that I saw for this, which were very well made, kudos to I think some of the guys that helped with this add-on had made those. They're not narrated or anything, but they were very, very well made. I wish I could make videos that good. And I'm going to bust their stones a little bit. I'm going to be presumptive and assume that they may have struggled with some of the landings because they had some great approach footage, but I don't think I saw any of them actually touching down, and I can totally understand why. I'll be honest with you guys, this is probably the 3rd or 4th flight I've taken after aborting a couple for just horribly botched landings, but that's what makes it so much fun. But I'm sure if those guys fly these in real life, they could probably do it on average way better than me. Look at that down there with all those rocks and boulders down in the water. Okay, so here's one Ranger coming up right here to the left. That is just so gorgeous. Man, and that's pretty much what it looks like in real life. I've saw all kinds of drone videos and stuff out here. That is very close. And this last one is also pretty much spot on. And Cliff, I apologize. You'd probably prefer me fly these with all the trees on, but I don't know why it's just such a burr in my saddle to see all the big shadow areas on the mountains that just look out of place. So I kept the snow on. And I know it makes it a little bit hard to see the falls. I'm going to try to get a good position to see this one. It's behind our console now, but I'm going to try to turn around so we can get a really nice view of it. I don't want to fly by it on the left. There's the mist. Look at that, baby. Oh, it's a 2-tier. Look at that. That is awesome. That looks amazing. Look at that thing. Oh, wow. Great job, Cliff. Great job. Okay, so we're going to come back down the same way we came up, and there's one more long, thin trickle fall that probably wasn't nearly as much fun to make as these, but you kind of have to have it because it is one of the bigger falls out here. It's just really skinny. It's in this little valley over here to the right, and then we'll turn right back around and come on down at our heliport, and then we'll take a look at the little nav map. I'll show you a couple more pretty cool spots, and then you guys can start trying to figure out the 5 places, maybe 6 if you can find them all, that I've lived. As far as announcements, we have got one more flight that I got to check out that has been recommended. It will be the first of our recommendations for this quarter from a member. And that one is down in Rio, which is probably long overdue. I have not taken a single flight down there yet since that world update, so I have no idea what it looks like. I know we have a lot of Brazilian viewers on the channel, so I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that, including my man Dan, who helped me set up the Discord page. We'll be coming to see you, Dan. And speaking of Discord, if you would like to recommend a flight, you can hop on there. That link will be in the video description. And if you've never heard of our quarterly flight plan competition, right now I'm paying out $75 at the end of the quarter after we vote as a sim community. I want to get at least 3 flights, maybe 4 in there. I'll put the video links on our community tab so you can watch the flights again or watch them for the first time if you haven't seen them. And then we'll put the voting up there. The winner will get at least $75. I'll keep scaling that up as YouTube pays me, but man, with so few people simming right now, understandably, the view count has been going down for everybody. As much as I would love to just pay you money out of my pocket, I'd rather pay you YouTube's money. So for now, we're going to hold it at $75 until things take off. And we'll keep scaling it up. There it is. There's a fall. See it running all the way up there? And it looks like there's a little notch way up in there. You can see it way up at the top. I'm not going to fly up in there. I'll probably get stuck. But that one's not nearly as impressive as the others, but probably also looks pretty true to life. Let me very carefully and gingerly try to turn this thing around, come on back down, and come into the heliport. I'm actually a little bit concerned if it's completely covered with snow. We were a little bit high when we flew past it, but if it's not textured at all, it's going to be hard to tell how high we are from it, so I might wind up slamming this thing down. I did not have this snow on for the other flight where I tried landing at that, which was easy because it's so big. but you get a better sense of... It's like landing on or flying low over really flat water. You can't tell how high up you are. Okay, so just under the pillar right there is where the airlift station is. And there's a couple other spots for helicopters out here. One's a cruise ship. I think there's another one maybe down along the coast. And then again, some more seaplane spawn points down there as well. We're a little bit high, and I'm probably coming down way too fast, but we're going to wind up overshooting it. Hopefully I won't enter a vortex ring state. That would be bad. But we're high enough that I can just fly out of it if that happens. Okay, get it back in view. So everything to the right of that dome-shaped hangar is where the parking areas are. Okay, I think we're going to survive this. I'm not sure what that big black area is right on this side of it. That's interesting, and it kind of goes off to the other side too. Got a couple trees in there. Maybe a parking area. Okay, coming on in. Yep, I think we got it. As long as there's a little bit of texture on that thing, which there does not appear to be. On this side of that fence, there's some texturing. We'll figure it out. Oh yeah, that looks very flat. That's alright. We got it. We got it. And once we get down, we'll hop out and just go. I've never looked at the flowing rapids up close. I'm going to go see what that looks like. Oh boy, that is completely flat. Yeah, you can... I have no idea how we are now. Which isn't that big of a deal if you're not trying to land it. There we go. Okay, we got to skid down. Okay. Alright, get her shut off, so we'll just turn the throttle off. And we gotta remove the idle lock and bring it all the way down, and then we'll just kill the fuel. Okay. Well, let's check it out. How about that sweet purple color? If we're gonna fly the same helicopter, I'm at least gonna change the paint job. Any planes or anything over here? No, there wouldn't be any planes, there'd be helicopters. Oh boy, that looks ice cold. Ice cold. It's making me a little thirsty though. Yep, looks like a rapids to me. Alright, back we go. What a beautiful area. Man, Cliff, you are just killing me with greatness. I'm your biggest fan. Send me a t-shirt. You have an awesome insignia too. Alright, let's look at the little nav map. Let me get it pulled up over here. If I can grab it. Come on. There we go. Alright, so how do we track that? Not too bad. Not too bad. Other than trying to find where those little tiny helipads were, we did alright. So let's get rid of that tail real quick. Take the centering off. Okay, a couple of different things to point out if you feel like doing a little bit more sightseeing. For one thing, that bridge that's up here is right over here. That's where the bridge is. That's InSim POI. So I left from... There's an InSim helipad that you can pick. I think it's somewhere around here. So I took that, cruised down there, checked out the bridge. Pretty cool, but that's a pretty long haul to get over there. If you're leaving from where we left from and you turn back around this way, this is where that road is that goes into the little tunnel. And you can see it comes all the way across here and then spits out right here by where that little industrial peninsula was. So that's about 7 miles right through the mountain. I bet that's a pretty cool trip. Okay, so we came up here to Sundal, and then here was where that massive glacier was. This looked great. There were some streams flowing down through there. And then, hello, birds. Here's where that little tiny outstation is, right there. Look at that glacier. That is amazing. So cool. That is definitely the best looking, or at least the neatest glacier I've ever seen. So here's what I was talking about with the old Fuglfana. The outer rim of it is just like all like a creeping glacier all the way around the outside. How wild is that? And then here's that little valley that we came down. Again, if you want to select this helipad, you can. There's nothing on the ground. It'll just start you in the snow there. But if you want to start on top of the glacier, maybe do a little skiing, you could do that there. So we came out here, came down to Odda, and check that out. Beautiful, beautiful. That looked fantastic. There's the industrial peninsula. Came over here to Tissedal, and then up here to the Trolltunga. Let's see if we can see that sticking out. No, it's kind of in a shadow. You really can't see it. Yep, it's right in that shadow. And then here's where that tiny little pump house was. There it is right there. But that is not, even though there's a marker right on top of that thing, the actual helipad is over here. That was that little wooden platform. Tough to spot. And there's that dam. And that's what it looks like if you don't have the snow on. It's just all shadow. So I think it looked a lot better with the snow because at least it put something on there. There's all those switchbacks. Incredible. I can't imagine driving up something like that. So they cruised up here, barely found that thing. And this is the one... No, it's not. But this is the one that has a little dam over there. See there? That's what it looks like. You could just see the top of it in the sim. And you can tell the water level's down pretty good there, too. How far down is it from... Well, that's up on the ledge anyway. But this next one... Here's the ski resort. Look at that. There's where the lift actually is. And I'm guessing... I mean, are these things the slopes? They got them all numbered and everything. I don't think anyone's skiing across that. Well, that's what happens when the glaciers disappear. But look at that. How do you ski across the top of that? You can see they've got some of it graded and plowed out here. But that's pretty wild. And then it goes all the way down over here. They must have to wait till there's more snowfall in there. You're not skiing across the top of something like that. But that would be cool. Look how tiny this parking lot is. 21 cars I counted out there. Maybe those are snowmobiles or something. Motorcycles. But that is wild. Look at that. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. So then we came to this one, and this is the one where the water level changed quite a bit. Look at this. So in one of the pictures I saw, the water level is right up to the edge of this. That one was really tough to spot. And when the water level's higher, this is all connected too. You can't even see that part right there. So that one's pretty tough to spot too. But definitely a fun landing challenge. Here's where that one little waterfall was, and we saw that interesting little tear in the landscape there. Came up over here, hit the big fjord one more time, and then here's Ullensvang. And their little living history museum is... It pops up somewhere on here. Not that there's much to see of it. I can't even find it anymore, but it's right around... Oh, there it is. It's right here. There it is. That's a living history museum. And then we came around here, and this is really interesting. Some of the maps, there was no snow right there, but look at this. That appears from the top down to be lower elevation than this, but I'm guessing it has to be higher, or there wouldn't be snow all over it, unless it's mostly in shadows, but that is crazy, because some of them didn't have snow at all on it, on the satellite maps. And here's Kinsarvik, and I think there's a little seaplane base you could maybe start here. Of course, they had the big cruise ship you could park on, and another seaplane base out there. They had another cruise ship over here, which I didn't try landing on that one, so I don't know if you can. But we came up here, checked out all these waterfalls, all of which looked amazing. I really like this one. That was awesome, the one at the top there. Came back around here, checked out that little skinny guy, and then brought her on back in. So I look forward to giving away this pack to whoever can correctly answer our MSFS flight plans trivia questions. Awesome flight. Thanks, Clifford. Another fantastic job. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to see you all again in the skies. Later.